Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. You know what it is. All right, you guys. Peep game. All right, man. Today is Peyton Manning's 44th birthday. Peyton Manning turns 44 today. And they had a question on First Take. And they was asking this question, is Peyton Manning a top three uh, quarterback or one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? Should he be in your top three? Oh man, that's very interesting because I'm gonna be honest with you. Where do I rank Peyton Manning? Numbers wise, you have to have him because you know me. Anybody that watch my channel, I go by numbers. I go by numbers, and I'm just keeping it 100. I go by numbers, and his number says he should be at least top 10. You know, because he threw for an astronomical amount of touchdowns. He threw for an astronomical amount of yards. Now, of course, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's no need to even have that conversation. Of course, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But where do I rank Peyton Manning? I gotta follow the footsteps of the brother, too raw for TV. I got him in my top 10 just based off what he accomplished. Now, that last Super Bowl he won, the defense won him that Super Bowl because I'm going to tell you the truth. Peyton Manning did not play very well in that Super Bowl. He didn't play good at all. He didn't. So, the defense managed to help him win that championship. And I look at the era that Peyton Manning played in. Peyton Manning he played in an era with Brent Favre. He played against Brent Favre. With Brent Favre, oh boy. Brent Favre is always a controversial question, or whether how you rank Brent Favre. I don't have Brent Favre in my top 10 greatest quarterbacks that ever played. But you look at Peyton Manning, you look at Joe Montana, you look at Dan Marino, you look at some of the dudes that came before him. It's really hard to like try to put Peyton Manning in your top three, but he's in the top 10. Then he played with Tom Brady. He played against Drew Brees in the Super Bowl. And keep in mind, Drew Brees beat Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. He actually outplayed Peyton Manning in the second half of that game. So, so if you look at numbers wise, you can make an argument that Drew Brees is a better quarterback than Peyton Manning. You really can make an argument because what Drew Brees did, because of what Drew Brees did, for him only being like 6 feet, which is astonishing. Drew Brees may be 5'11", 6 feet at best. And for Drew Brees to play at a high level that he's played at for well over, for real, I think Drew Brees been playing since 2000. So I think he's been playing for 20 years. For him to be playing at the high level that he's playing at, that's astonishing. So, like I said before, it's very difficult how you rank Peyton Manning. I don't know if he's a top three greatest quarterback of all time because if you look at touchdown interception ratio, you could throw Ben Roethlisberger up in there. His brother, like him or not, his brother is a 2 times Super Bowl MVP. So, it's a very difficult argument because, like I said, I'm really freestyling this, and I just don't know if Peyton Manning is a top three greatest quarterback of all time because keep in mind he has played in an era where you basically can't even touch the quarterback, or you'll get like a roughing the quarterback, penalty, and then they tweaked the game a little bit, and made it a passer-friendly, more quarterback-friendly league because they don't run the ball like they used to. So they put the NFL, they basically put the new NFL game in a position where basically you can have these inflated numbers. And I'm not saying that Peyton Manning isn't good and he wasn't a good quarterback, but there were times where Peyton Manning looked horrible, where he played horrible, until he got to the Super Bowl and won his first Super Bowl against the Chicago Bears. Peyton Manning, a lot of people thought he was overrated. And a lot of people thought he wasn't ever going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, Peyton Manning was considered a choke artist before he finally got to the playoffs and got to the Super Bowl and won it all. And then keep in mind, he played in that Super Bowl versus the Seattle Seahawks, where basically the Seattle Seahawks just basically annihilated them. Basically, I'm gonna be honest with you, that Seattle Seahawks team, they could have scored 60 points against that Denver Broncos team. They could have scored, I'm serious. I'm talking about they got destroyed. So you got to think about that. Peyton Manning played in four Super Bowls. He played in 4, and he's 2-2 in Super Bowls. So that's why it's hard to make that argument. And then, to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the defense, he might only would have 1 Super Bowl ring. At the end of the day, that Chicago Bears team that he played, they just wasn't that good. They had Rex Grossman as their quarterback. They just wasn't that good. So it's tough. Like I said, where do I have Peyton Manning? Because I look at all the quarterbacks that played before him. Johnny Unitas, just quite a few. Joe Montana, Dan Fouts. You have the guys that didn't win rings. Ken Anderson. You have Donovan McNabb. Because at the end of the day, even though Donovan McNabb didn't win anything, but Donovan McNabb has actually a better touchdown interception ratio than Peyton Manning. So it's just really tough. If I had a choice, maybe one day I'll look at some numbers when I have some time, because I'm really freestyling this. So feel free to fill in the blanks if I left out a quarterback. But you think of Joe Montana, you think of Dan Marino. I think Dan Marino was a better quarterback than Peyton Manning. Even though Dan Marino didn't win anything, I just think he was a better quarterback than Peyton Manning. And then you guys know how I feel about Troy Aikman. I don't think very highly of Troy Aikman. I think Troy Aikman was the luckiest quarterback, and I think he was the most overrated quarterback. To be honest with you, I'm serious as hell, and I stand by this. Troy Aikman had no business getting into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot over Michael Irvin. Emmitt Smith got in on the first ballot, but Troy Aikman had no business getting put in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot with his numbers. I mean, you guys let me know what you think. Where do you rank Peyton Manning? I have him in my top 10, but top 3, I don't think so. I have Dan Marino and Joe Montana rank higher than Peyton Manning. Then you got to consider Steve Young. So like I said, I need you guys to understand, in the era that Steve Young and Joe Montana and Dan Marino played in, they relied heavily on the run. You needed a solid running back to help you win games and get you to the playoffs and championships. So let me know what you think. This your boy Town Biz. I'm out.